Welcome to Turnpike Sports. I'm David Weischadle, and as always, I'm joined by my producer and co-host, Doug Weischadle. Doug, it looks like baseball is going to be back as we stand now anyway. So spring training is about ready to resume, I guess we could call that.
Well, I guess it's a matter of reporting with the, what was that, when and where was the baseball
well,
players
they got their
thing.
when and where.
They got their when and where.
So.
I'm curious to see if they actually go through with filing a grievance and everything that they were talking about. And, you know, it's a 60-game season. It'll be interesting to see exactly how things shake out, who's going to make it in. I know a lot of teams that made the playoffs last year would not have made it if it was a 60-game season last year. So it'll be interesting to see who makes the playoffs this year. Could be a whole new crop of teams.
I'm still curious about the logistics and if the virus will have an effect. I mean, there are players being tested positive. What happens if a large amount of one team is tested positive? Does that mean that the entire team doesn't play, or what happens? I'm curious to see how this all shakes out.
I also want to know what happens after a player tests positive. Does he have to go through the 14 days, come back, get tested again?
I would guess so, yeah.
It's a matter of the protocols.
They have the protocols out now. So
that's the protocol right now, but I don't know if they're going to be able to adhere to that because you may have a player that misses 60 games.
Yeah, who knows?
If he tests positive right at the start.
Who knows? Well, we got a great show coming up. Later on, we're going to have a Turnpike Sports book report where we talk about what's going on in the sports books across the country. And then I'm going to have a great interview with Chris Altruda from sportshandle.com and Better Collective. We're going to talk about what's going on in the state of Illinois. Lots of news coming out of Illinois regarding horse racing and sports betting.
And online sports betting.
Absolutely. They're doing a great job in Illinois, so it should be an interesting interview to see what's going on in the land of Lincoln. But it's been a busy week in sports, so let's take a trip down the Turnpike. And today's trip down the Turnpike is brought to you by Drizzly, your online liquor store. Available in over 95 cities across North America, Drizzly offers a huge selection and competitive pricing with a side of personalized content. Now there's no need to leave the house. Get alcohol delivered in less than an hour by Drizzly. Head on over to drizzly.com and order today. And now get $5 off your first order of $20 or more when using our promo code DRINK19 at checkout. Shop beer, wine, and liquor with drizzly.com.
Exit 1.
Okay, even though there's a lot of live sports going on, there's still stuff behind the scenes that, you know, business-wise, we always have to talk about.
Sure.
And this week we're going to talk about Sport Radar.
Great company, by the way.
Great company, and they've been in the news recently. They've done a bunch of extensions, and they've also had, I would say, a complaint against them. The extensions they've done their extensions with FanDuel, Roar Digital, and DraftKings. Each one has a little different tack to it. FanDuel extended its partnership with Sport Radar to include official NFL league data. They never had that before from Sport Radar.
Huh.
So they expanded that, and what that means for FanDuel is they now have all major U.S. sports data from Sport Radar. They also have data for including tennis, European club and national team soccer,
all right,
darts, and Korean baseball.
Oh, thank God.
Got to have that Korean baseball.
Yeah, the darts. Oh, yeah, we need that.
Roar Digital is the next part of this. They have entered into a long-term extension with Sport Radar through September 2026.
Okay.
Sport Radar will be continuing to provide the data that they for the sporting events for Roar Digital. Plus, they're also going to be supplying data for other events for Roar on their BetMGM platform.
I like BetMGM. It's a very good site.
And also,
good site.
With the new retail books that are being branded BetMGM, and you know it's a good brand on the national scene. Also, they're going to be integrating Sport Radar's portfolio of live streaming.
Oh, they're going to
events.
Stream, huh?
Yeah.
All right, great.
I mean, they're one of the few that doesn't now.
What?
That does not stream.
Who, BetMGM?
BetMGM.
Yeah. No, it's good that they're going to stream.
Yeah, they announced it a while ago that they had the capability, but with Sport Radar now, they're going to have some streaming sporting events to bet on as well as watch.
Good.
And DraftKings. They will also be offering live stream sports games through the app.
Oh, okay.
Everywhere except Iowa.
Okay. Is there
Don't
a
ask
reason
me.
why Iowa? Okay.
No, actually, yeah, I think DraftKings is not licensed in Iowa just yet.
Okay.
So they're also going to have Korean Baseball Organization and Bundesliga Soccer, only Division I Bundesliga Soccer, streaming live through the app.
Boy, that's gotten a lot of press lately.
It's a big league.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, I haven't heard too much of it before this year. It's good that, they're getting their recognition.
Well, I always like when you talk about the DraftKings customers being able to do certain things in certain states.
Yeah.
One of the phrases I always like seeing is a customer of DraftKings that's in a legal jurisdiction and has a balance of 0 in their DraftKings Sportsbook wallet. Basically, just be a customer. You don't have to have any money to watch the sports at stream.
Oh, okay. That's good.
Yeah. Now, as we all know, being lawyers, we know you can't have good things happen without maybe 1 or 2 bad things popping up.
Sure.
The Ukrainian Association of Football, the UAF, is threatening legal action against Sportradar.
Okay.
For the unauthorized collection and distribution of data from their Ukrainian football competitions.
So they're alleging that Sportradar is using information that they're not supposed to be using?
Since Sportradar does not have a deal with the UAF.
Oh, so they're alleging that
Sportradar is sending out their data from their games that they shouldn't be.
Okay.
Now the UAF has also talked to 2 other sportsbook operators, and they actually complied. Genius Sports and Stats Perform. They stopped collecting data for sportsbook operators, and they complied. Sportradar has not responded directly to the UAF.
Okay.
But the UAF also entered into a exclusive deal with Feed Construct for the data stream.
Okay.
And according to Sportradar, they told Sport Business in an interview that they have been negotiating with Feed Construct for a sublicense.
Okay, that's a smart move.
Yeah. Right now they're saying they're just getting it from ordinary media feeds, the data.
Okay.
They're not going in stadium. They're not getting it directly from the games. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Sportradar is alleging that they're not getting it from directly to games, and they're also negotiating with Feed Construct for a sublicense.
Right, they're doing the right thing.
Okay,
yeah. It'll be interesting to see how the UAF responds to all this stuff, if they actually consider Sportradar infringing on anything. But if that sublicense goes through, I don't know what the soccer league can do about that.
Exit 2.
Alrighty, now we have our esports exit, and we have David Beckham.
Oh, he's jumping into it now?
Everyone's
jumping into esports now.
He's becoming a minority stockholder of Guild Esports.
Okay.
Now,
is that in the UK?
That's UK.
All right.
Guild Esports started late last year, late 2019, September, October of that year. They really haven't had any esports competitions just yet.
They're I guess
company.
They're less than a year old, huh?
Yeah.
So they're brand new.
They have no team yet.
Okay.
And what's interesting about Guild is they're approaching their entire strategy for esports tournaments and esports teams like they do a football or a soccer team. They're going to construct it with a front office, and they're going to have scouts going out looking for players.
Wow, scouts. Wow, I never even thought of scouts being used for an esports team.
You got to do that.
I guess so, yeah. I just never thought of it like that.
It's just one of those things, and this is David Beckham.
So scouts, let me ask you something about the scouts. Scouts, I guess, would be scouring Twitch and things like that. And
Twitch,
online.
YouTube, and also...
So they're not visiting places, right?
You know what? If it wasn't a pandemic atmosphere, they probably would be visiting tournaments.
I guess they'd be in the stands of a tournament if it wasn't a pandemic, if you had the stands filled.
Or wherever they're holding the events.
Okay.
If everyone's watching on TV, I have this labeled Golden Balls enters esports.
What the hell does that mean?
This is why it struck me as kind of odd, because everywhere I was reading, I started seeing references to Golden Balls.
Okay.
That's a nickname Beckham got. Not from the general public, but just from his wife. And I thought it was a funny story.
Okay.
Him and his wife were on a television interview show, and they asked her about her feelings towards Beckham's career, David Beckham's career.
All right.
His wife is Posh Spice, Victoria Beckham.
Yeah.
And I think everyone recalls what happened in the 98 World Cup where he kicked another player and he was booted off. He had turned around his career. He got more popular. He's doing a lot of other things through his companies with her. And she just blurted out the phrasing that she was so proud of his turnaround that she now calls him Golden Balls.
Okay, all right.
And
so Golden Balls is not
real. It's not a real official nickname.
Okay,
but
they ought to trademark that.
I would.
Yeah, no.
I mean, it's funny.
I think it's smart.
It's funny, maybe a little embarrassing for him, but it's actually a good nickname.
All
and
right.
his ownership is through DB Ventures, David Beckham Ventures, which is another subsidiary of Beckham Brand Holdings. And he's doing a lot of things. Besides the esports team, he's co-owner of the Inter Miami CF team in Major League Soccer.
All right.
He's got a range of eyewear, a whiskey brand,
I didn't see the whiskey brand.
and a production company that's making a cookery show.
A cookery show.
I'm assuming they make cooking,
I mean,
not
guess,
crock pot. They're not making cookery,
Yeah, right.
not kitchenware.
They're making stoneware. No, I guess I guess it's a cooking show. I guess that's what the British call
Well,
cooking show, cookery show.
I'm going to look forward to seeing that.
All right,
And
cookery show.
Welcome to David Beckham to the world of esports.
Exit 3.
Okay, we've been dealing with a lot of fantasy sports companies lately because the leagues are starting up again. All the major leagues are starting up.
Sure.
Football, baseball, basketball, hockey, soccer, all that stuff. But one area where we're starting to see a little bit more interest in the fantasy side, especially after our interview with Monkey Knife Fight a couple weeks back, fantasy golf is becoming a big thing.
Let me tell you something. Golf is becoming huge with sports bettors, but mainly because there's not a lot of things to bet on. But fantasy golf is really, I think, exploding.
Well, we have this
amazing.
new fantasy sports company, Prize Picks. I shouldn't say new. They've been around for quite a while.
All right.
But they just made a deal to become the official daily fantasy sports partner of the Outlaw Tour, which is an Arizona-based mini golf tour that never shut down during the pandemic. They were still playing.
I have never heard of the Outlaw
Never
Tour.
heard of it either.
I mean, is this professional?
They're
or is
professional
this...
golfers.
Okay.
But it's a mini tour that's only in the Southwest area.
Is it just in Arizona, or is it in the Southwest
It's Arizona
states?
based, but it's Southwest.
Okay, all right, okay. So the Outlaw Tour.
The Outlaw.
Okay,
Outlaw
all right.
Tour.
I'll keep an eye on
Yeah,
it.
Prize Picks is the official daily fantasy sports partner, and they said that while the NBA and the NFL are the top two sports that they have, given what's going on with Major League Baseball historically was top three with them. They were the third top sport. Mm-hmm. Given what's going on with the league and all the BS going between the owners and the players and the acrimony.
Well, I think it's okay now, but I don't know yet.
I never say everything's okay.
There's
okay
always
with baseball.
tension in the MLB, so who knows what's
you
going on.
can't have baseball without the tension, but they feel, given what's going on with Major League Baseball and the possibility that they still may not have a season.
No, this is not. Certainly
they feel golf is the way to go.
It's worked out with MLB, but like I said before, I don't know what the path the virus will take and how it'll affect the teams down the road. So who knows? And you got this second wave possibly coming of the virus. So God knows when that's going to hit and how that's going to affect baseball and the other sports in the fall. So who knows?
Well, after reading this, I actually want to check out Prize Picks because they've got an interesting way of doing fantasy golf. They don't do the teams like or the way FanDuel and DraftKings do fantasy golf.
Uh-huh.
They do you do over-under parlays predicting performances of 2 to 4 players. So you do
I like
player
that.
parlays.
That's very interesting. I like that.
It's a different way of doing fantasy sports, especially for golf. And I'm assuming they do this for their other sports, and I have to do a little more research to take a look at this. But it's an interesting way of doing. It's a different way.
Yeah, I gotta check it out.
It's very close to sports betting.
I gotta tell you, DraftKings and FanDuel are just full of professional fantasy sports players. I mean, it's almost impossible to win now.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. But this isn't the first time Prize Picks has done something different in the realm of fantasy sports. They're the first fantasy sports company that did a deal with the American Cornhole League.
Okay, all right.
So
I checked out that in ESPN, I guess, a couple of weeks ago. It was interesting, and they're all wearing masks too, which is nice to see.
Yeah,
they're being responsible. Good for the cornhole players.
They actually utilize what the American Cornhole League created. The American Cornhole League (ACL) has ACL Virtual, which is it's an ability for the individual players to record what they're doing each round and each game.
Wow.
Upload the result to the official ACL Facebook page, and allows people to track results.
So if I go to Prize Picks, I can play fantasy daily cornhole league. Am I saying that right? You can play
when there
fantasy sports with cornhole
when there
right?
are ACL
games
going
on. When
yes.
the American Cornhole League plays,
yeah.
I can go to Prize Picks and do daily fantasy.
Right.
Okay. All right.
And they're not done.
Okay.
Prize Picks has a goal of becoming the first daily fantasy sports operator to partner with the LPGA.
Great. Wow.
So, and also the European Tour, which is
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's something that's not been done yet.
Right.
And then I
have to keep an eye out for
they are
Prize
very
Picks.
unique in the marketplace.
I got to keep my eye out for Prize Picks.
Exit 4.
And last but not least, we have Amazon's prime new space in Seattle. They have entered into their first naming rights deal for a stadium.
All right.
They will be the title partner, the naming rights partner, to the new arena being built in Seattle that's going to house the new NHL expansion team.
Do we have a name for them yet?
Unofficially, supposedly,
Is it still
it's the Kraken.
The Kraken.
The
Singular,
Kraken.
not the Krakens.
Well, Kraken is plural.
Kraken
like deer.
is deer. Okay,
Yeah.
it's like deer. Okay,
Yeah.
so it's Kraken, the Seattle Kraken.
That's the unofficial official name.
Okay.
And also, they are going to be the stadium naming rights partner for the WNBA Seattle Storm.
All right.
The unique thing about this arena is it will be called the Climate Pledge Arena, which is, as a lot of our eco-friendly people out there know, the Climate Pledge is a campaign started in 2019 by Amazon and the group Global Optimism. They're calling for signatories to be net zero carbon across businesses by 2040.
Well, hey, you know what? It's a great way to publicize this cause, which is good for Amazon. I like Amazon.
Amazon is hoping to have this arena be the first net zero carbon certified arena in the world.
Wow, good.
All electric operations they're planning to have powered by 100% renewable resources. Carbon emissions will be publicly disclosed.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to use reclaimed rainwater in the ice system.
Interesting. Wow.
They're actually going to reuse the original roof of the old stadium that's being remodeled here. 44 million pounds of the original roof are going to be used in the construction of the new one.
Okay.
And at least 75% of the food program will be locally sourced.
Oh, okay.
So they're doing a lot of things. Plus, also the tickets now for the NHL team and the WNBA team are going to double as public transportation tickets.
That's great.
That's a different way of doing things.
That's great. I like what they're doing.
So
I hope other people take notice and other stadiums across the country take notice. I know the one here, Philadelphia, if you go to Philadelphia Eagles Lincoln Financial Field, you'll see the wind turbines that they help power the stadium. So I think a lot of stadiums are jumping on the bandwagon, and rightly so, and doing this stuff.
Well,
Good.
This is their first naming rights deal.
Yeah.
Terms were not disclosed, but everyone's figuring that somewhere between $300 and $400 million worth.
Yeah.
This makes it one of the top 5 richest arena naming rights deals. So, congratulations to Amazon.
Yeah, good for them.
They're doing some great things, and boy, they're everywhere now.
Oh, yeah. And today's trip down the Turnpike was brought to you by Drizzly, your online liquor store. Available in over 95 cities across North America, Drizzly offers a huge selection and competitive pricing with a side of personalized content. Now there's no need to leave the house. Get alcohol delivered in less than an hour by Drizzly. Head on over to drizzly.com and order today. Now get $5 off your first order of $20 or more when using our promo code DRINK19 at checkout. Shop beer, wine, and liquor with drizzly.com.
And to get in touch with Turnpike Sports, head over to Facebook and Twitter. At Turnpike Sports is the handle there. At Turnpike Sports Radio is our handle on Instagram. Our email address is info@turnpikesportsradio.com. And our studio line is 609-512-5910. It's also our text line. Don't forget you can subscribe to Turnpike Sports through Pandora Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartMedia, Radio.com mobile app, iTunes. And you can also watch Turnpike Sports on your Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV devices. Go on over to turnpikesports.net.
And later on, we're going to have the Turnpike Sports Book Report, where we talk about what's going on in the sports books across the country. But right after this, I'm going to talk with Chris Altruda from SportsHandle.com and Better Collective about the great state of Illinois and the incredible things they're doing with sports betting and also the horse racing industry in Illinois. So stick around. It's going to be a great interview. So we'll see you on the other side of these commercial breaks with more Turnpike Sports. We'll get back to the show in a few moments, but I just wanted to take some time and tell everyone about Bean Genius, the smart specialty coffee subscription service. Bean Genius sells freshly roasted coffee from some of the best independent coffee roasters in the country. They feature over 2,000 specialty coffee blends, all at your fingertips at beangenius.com. Here's how it works. Head on over to beangenius.com and take their palate profiler test to find out what coffee best fits your taste. Then select from a variety of subscription plans. Every subscription comes with free shipping, and delivery can even be scheduled for once or twice each month. And based upon your review of each coffee blend you try, Bean Genius actually learns your individual taste preferences and then suggests future coffee blends for you. And now you can get 10% off your Bean Genius subscription when you use our promo code PIKE at checkout. Bean Genius offers a variety of subscription plans to suit any coffee lover's needs. Subscribe with Bean Genius today and start enjoying some of the best tasting coffee around. And save 10% off your coffee plan with promo code PIKE.
Psst. Yeah, you. Come here. Haven't you heard? We don't need to hide anymore. Now, we can shop privately for adult products at adamandeve.com. They've got massage oils, lingerie, and lots more we can't mention here. Use the offer code SPICE404. They'll give you 50% off almost any one item, 3 free DVDs, free mystery gift, and free shipping. That's 50% off, free shipping, and more. Private shopping starts at adamandeve.com.
Today's trip down the Turnpike is brought to you by Drizzly, your online liquor store. Available in over 95 cities across North America, Drizzly offers a huge selection and competitive pricing with a side of personalized content. Now there's no need to leave the house. Get alcohol delivered in less than an hour by Drizzly. Head on over to drizzly.com and order today. And now get $5 off your first order of $20 or more when using promo code DRINK19 at checkout. Shop beer, wine, and liquor with drizzly.com.
Credit card debt can ruin your life. If you owe $10,000 and minimum payments are siphoning away your paycheck each month, you can get debt-free in less time than you think.
I've paid $800 a month for the past 3 years and haven't changed the balance on my credit card.
Get debt-free now has a program to reduce your debt, stop the harassing phone calls, avoid financial ruin, and settle for less than you owe.
I feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders.
You're pre-approved for our special hardship program if you owe $10,000 or more. Upon payment of your new lower balance, your debt will finally shrink until you are debt-free.
My family no longer has 30 years of payments ahead of us at 20% interest.
There's no fees until you see results. So call now, make one monthly program payment, and free up your cash. Resolve your debt.
Call 800-515-1558. 800-515-1558.
Welcome back to Turnpike Sports. Dave Weischadle with you here. Lots of news stories about gambling are coming in from all around the country, and one of the big gaming markets that's in the news right now is Illinois. One reporter who is required reading for us here at the radio show is Chris Altruda from SportsHandle.com and Better Collective. And to fill us in on what's going on in the land of Lincoln is Chris Altruda, who's on the line right now. Chris, thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Chris, before we get started, can you give us a rundown of what's going on and what's open or shut down in Illinois? I know I'm sitting here in New Jersey, and as we speak, our casinos are still closed until probably July 2nd. Our racetracks recently opened. I know Pennsylvania is opening slowly. What's open and closed in terms of gambling in Illinois?
Okay, so right now the 3 tracks in Illinois, Fairmount, Hawthorne, and Arlington Park, are all technically open with spectatorless racing. Arlington Park just signed a deal with the jockeys here, and their live racing schedule is slated to start July 23rd. The casinos are apparently not going to reopen as part of Phase 4 in Restore, Illinois. There was no mention of it when Governor Pritzker moved the state into Phase 4. So it's possible that, I believe, Phase 5, the earliest that it could be open there is July 23rd. Whether or not there is something in the interim is yet to be seen. The casinos do have a set of protocols from the gaming board that they are trying to fulfill. And the only thing that is technically open is the Bet Rivers sporting app through Rivers Casino for sports betting.
Is there anything, and gaming. What's the latest coming from the governor or state officials? Are they giving any concrete plans on dates or any benchmarks they have to hit before casinos opening? Anything coming from state officials?
There really hasn't been much in the way of it. At the same time, Governor Pritzker has been very deliberate in his reopening process. I mean, they just reached Phase 4, which for the city included indoor dining at a capacity of 25%. It has been a very slow process. It's to the point where some people have complained about the pace of it, but it seems to be going at the pace that the governor wants, and based on the various levels in terms of positive testing rates and testing and just cases in general, his approach appears to be being borne out by what seems to be a positive track right now.
You know, you mentioned racetracks, and I want to start with them, specifically one racetrack. And let me tell you something. Before I read your articles in Sports Handle, I thought there could be no worse negotiating a contract than Major League Baseball and owners and players. And then I read about Arlington Park and the state's Thoroughbred Association. Before we get into the interesting contract negotiations between the parties, can you give us a little background about how Arlington Park and the Thoroughbred Association got to the point they got to?
Well, a large part of this comes from the fact that Arlington Park is owned by Churchill Downs. And Churchill Downs had long been on the bandwagon when for an expansion of gambling in the state in general, in addition to sports betting. They had wanted to turn Arlington Park into a casino, and that was a constant drumbeat for them as lobbying this expansion plan that Governor Pritzker signed into law last year. So after he signs it into law last June, 2 months later, Churchill Downs comes out and says they are not going to pursue the Racino license, citing the high tax rate. That instantly incurred the wrath of the ITHA, which is the Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association here. And they have, while not publicly been at each other's throats, there is a simmering level of contention between the two sides. And one of the conditions that came with that capital expansion bill was that the two sides had to have a signed deal in place by January 1st. And it never came to fruition. So they continued to negotiate. And then you had COVID, and then they continued to negotiate. And by the time this month rolled around, it appeared that they had reached agreement on 99.99% of the items that were being negotiated, one of which being the overnight purse sizes. Then the talks broke down, and the board recessed for 2 weeks, thinking that that would be enough time. They negotiated over the weekend after the first recess, and again there were incremental steps of progress. So last Thursday, they were supposed to have a deal in place, and there was a late breakdown. Another recess, go to Friday, and this is where it got where it just ratcheted up into the unbelieving territory. Is that the meeting started at 1:00, and they said, commissioner said that, everything was in place for an agreement. The Arlington Park president, Tony Petrillo, mentioned that, we've done everything, this is the deal, and so on and so forth. And ITHA Executive Director David McCaffrey sounded completely blindsided by the fact that he was told there was an agreement in place, to the point where he said he did not get the email of the latest contract until 8 minutes into the meeting. And it was just, from there, it was just, well, I can't obviously sign this because I haven't seen it. So they go to recess again for 2.5 hours. They come back. Obviously, the ITHA has no interest in signing this until they look over everything. And there's talk of multiple contracts that were being sent over, none of which matched. So they recess over the weekend. And then, so Monday morning rolls around, and they finally have this deal, which, and everybody's, starting to feel good about themselves, patting themselves on the back that they agree to this. And then, because they're fixing the race schedule for the Dark Host days and the live racing schedule, then Hawthorne jumps in, asking for a consideration of the reallocation of the Dark Host days, because they've been probably the most impacted by the pandemic in terms of the fact they only had 4 Dark Host days. They had their live racing, but they had all the horses on their backstretch for 3 months while Arlington Park was completely shut down because of the pandemic. And Arlington, as is their right, sought to enforce the legality of the contract that was signed before everything happened, which, again, is their right. It doesn't look good from a PR standpoint, but it's understandable. So as they were going back and so Tony Petrillo and John Walsh, who's the assistant general manager of Hawthorne, were going back and forth, and it sounded like Hawthorne was making a reasonable request. They didn't want all of the Dark Host days. They asked for 15 of them, which would have probably, Walsh estimated that would have been about $200,000, which would have covered almost 1 month of the cost of having all those horses on the backstretch. Again, Arlington, stuck and twisted and, kind of held their ground. They went to recess again. They came back. Arlington brought its major counsel in. They had one counsel in before the recess. The main counsel came in and also tried to stress the legality of agreements. And then also, almost tweaking the IRB, said that the IRB had no statutory authority to change the agreement, to which the IRB counsel completely came back and said, yes, we do. It's in the Horse Racing Act. At the end of the day, Arlington got the Dark Host days ahead of their live racing schedule, but it was interesting the fact that it wasn't a unanimous vote, and the person who cast the dissenting vote was Commissioner Thomas McCauley, who was essentially the person who held the hands of Arlington and the ITHA throughout the negotiating process to get them over the finish line. So it's really been a nonstop adventure for the past 2 months. And while you're going to have a simmering of sorts, the next meeting will be entertaining because it could be an entirely new look Illinois Racing Board. There are 2 commissioners, Daniel Beiser and Arlene Mulder, whose terms expire. And there are 2 vacant positions whose terms expire. All 4 of those positions, the term expires on July 1st. There's been nothing from the governor's office regarding who potential replacements are. They actually had to find someone a couple months ago just to get a quorum of 6. There's supposed to be 11 on the board, and they only have 6 right now. And on top of that, the current makeup in terms of political party is 5 Democrat and 1 Republican, and you can have no more than 6 of either party on the board. So it is a constant state of flux, and by the time we get to either September or October, when the next race dates for the 2021 season are held, that's going to be a very contentious hearing, because the commissioners have already said that they're going to remember that what all the things Hawthorne did to help, and Churchill Downs is not committed to racing at Arlington beyond 2021. So it will be, in some respects, a free-for-all at that racing dates meeting.
I gotta say,
in September or October.
Reading about it, it's been an unbelievable process that they've been going through. I mean, with this contract in place, has there been what I'm asking is the virus that we just went through, and I know there's talk about a second wave coming through, has there been any contractual clauses put in place for the racing industry in this contract with regard to the coronavirus and how that affects racing going forward?
I think with the racing dates hearing, I think that's going to be a point of contention whether or not a force majeure clause will be inserted. I think that was one point that led to the late breakdown Friday between the ITHA and Arlington. There were two outstanding issues by the time Friday rolled around. One was arbitration on the purse sizes, but that also seemed to have a very straightforward solution in the sense that if the two sides presented their numbers and they were close enough, they were just going to average it down the middle. And if they were far apart enough, they would have had a third party, and the third party in that case would have been the IRB director of mutuals, Mike Belmonte, and everyone seemed on board with that. The second issue was, and I have to find this one because it also related to a principle, the force majeure provision that would, greatly affect the outcome of the purse sizes. And the ITHA had been, that was one of the first sticking points of negotiations because they originally asked for $200,000 per day in the overnight purses. And the eventual number that they settled on was $150,000 for next year and $130,000 for this year.
What is the next big date we should be looking for with regard to Illinois racing for next year? I mean, when is this? Okay, it seems like it's so unsettled right now. When are we going to see what Illinois racing will look like in the future?
That's a really good question because right now the bigger news is what's going on off the track in the sense that all three of them have applied for sports betting licenses, and in the case of Hawthorne and Fairmont, they're also applying for the Racino licenses, which Arlington didn't. So at some point during this year, the expectation is the Illinois Gaming Board will hear all three sports betting application licenses and approve, one, two, or three of them to kind of expand sports betting here. As for next year, because one of the negotiating points that came out was that Arlington Park dropped their stakes races for this year, which is the Arlington Million, which is kind of well known, and the Beverly D, but in 2021 they will be back. I am not well versed in the Hawthorne and Fairmont schedules, so I'm not exactly sure what is big in terms of harness racing, but those two Grade 1 stakes races usually stand out in terms of horse racing here.
Well, you mentioned it, and the other big story coming out of Illinois is that they've gone live with mobile sports betting. I mean, before we get into specifics of the launch, can you fill us in on how Illinois got to that point? Was there opposition for Illinois going online, or, was that the plan all along?
There wasn't as much opposition to Illinois going online as it was preventing FanDuel and DraftKings from going online to set the market with everyone else. This goes back to 2015 during what you would call the outlaw period of daily fantasy sports, and both FanDuel and DraftKings were operating DFS sites with no legal ruling in the state as to whether or not it was legal. Eventually, the Attorney General, Lisa Madigan, who, for those who don't live in Illinois, is the daughter of Michael Madigan, the Democratic House Speaker, who is an institution in the state in terms of politics, ruled that DFS was illegal. So as the negotiations for legalizing sports betting were going on, Neil Bloom, who runs Rush Street Interactive and Rivers Casino, was lobbying very hard for some sort of ban against FanDuel and DraftKings. He originally wanted them out of the market in terms of an online-only license for 3 years. And it got contentious to the point where the two sides were taking out commercial airtime in the Chicago market, ripping each other.
Really?
So eventually Pritzker had to step in there, and they eventually negotiated what is, as part of the law, a 540-day waiting period from an online-only operator could not apply for a sports betting license until 540 days until after the first master sports wagering license was issued. So as the Illinois Gaming Board was moving forward with the applications, everyone was getting a temporary operating permit. They weren't being licensed per se, and by the time March rolled around, Rivers Casino and the Argosy in Alton had been given provisionary approval to accept wagers, but still had the temporary operating permit. So that clock never started. So then you have COVID, which, shut down everything. And then approximately 3 weeks ago, Governor Pritzker issued an executive order waiving the in-person registration provision to have a mobile sports betting app. And so everyone, started, putting the clock on, when is it going to be available? When's it going to be available? Who's going to have it available? And it was always going to be Bet Rivers to be first to market based on the fact that Rivers Casino was the first to market for live sports betting. And it was just, everything was in line in terms of the supplier license, the management license, and so on and so forth. So as everyone was waiting for Rivers to go live mobile, the Illinois Gaming Board finally got around to issuing licenses for all 7 casinos that had permits at that point. So now the clock started on that. Now the other half of the equation is that FanDuel and DraftKings are not really interested in waiting around for 18 months, which becomes 21 months when you factor in the application period. Mm-hmm. So FanDuel has reportedly been in talks to buy Fairmount Park and then, essentially, skirt the 540-day provision by having a retail book at the track. No one seems to know where DraftKings is going to wind up in this state, but DraftKings does have a management services provider temporary permit.
Okay.
So of the 7 casinos, it was possible that they had links to 2 through Caesars. They had links to a third through IGT, but they have been very coy and very quiet on, a possible landing place here. So that's been kind of the Palace intrigue. And on the 18th, Rivers went live with Bet Rivers in their mobile app, and right now that is the only one that is active, although the expectation is that the Argosy will be next because they were provisionally approved to accept wagers before the pandemic.
Now, with regard to Bet Rivers, how did the launch go, and were there any problems that were reported after it launched?
The launch went fairly smoothly. I mean, I have it on my system. I admittedly am somewhat, I won't say I'm the most technically savvy person, and as someone who has like a rewards member card, I think I hand-fisted something when I was applying to get it myself. So customer service person walked me through it. Everything, as far as I know, has gone fairly smoothly. One of my friends who lives along the Illinois-Wisconsin border has had some issues with geolocation because he's literally feet from the state line.
Okay.
So I think as the geolocation continues to gather information, I think that problem works itself out. But as far as I know, I haven't seen anything regarding problems in terms of launch. The lines seem fairly reasonable as an only market in right now. I remember when they opened in March, there were a couple people grousing that some of the lines were minus 117 and minus 118. But I mean, that's, I think you're going to get that initial grousing when you're the only act in town.
Yeah.
But right now, as far as I can tell, everything seems to be going well in terms of the Bet Rivers, in terms of the mobile app and people using it.
Well, it's going well for you because you just hit on soccer.
Yes, I had a nice double today. I had Everton winning straight up, and I had a nice parlay of Wolverhampton winning and Raul Jimenez scoring a goal, and everything came up roses today. So I am pleased.
That's why you're a great reporter. You do this for research. So it's
exactly
what has to be done. But how many platforms does Illinois plan on having? I mean, it's I know Rivers is the first one, and they were the first retail and the first online. How many do you plan on having, and when do you think they're going to be rolled out?
One of the other upshots of the last Illinois Gaming Board meeting was that they gave their administrator, Marcus Fruchter, more power. And one of the caveats of the more centralized powers was that it involves only the pre-existing casinos that are only the casinos that were given licenses. So essentially, all 7 casinos that got the licenses are going to be the casinos that Fruchter would work on to get them moving towards having mobile sports betting available. And this market is going to be interesting to watch, especially the longer FanDuel and DraftKings are not in it, because PointsBet has an agreement in place with Hawthorne, and there are various other ones. We think that BetMGM will be in here at some point, and but of all those potential mobile sports betting providers, none of them have the clout, so to speak, that FanDuel and DraftKings have. So as a result, you're going to have all these betting platforms that are essentially like on equal footing, establishing themselves, establishing a beachhead in the state. And then when FanDuel and DraftKings come into the fray, it will be a battle, it will be the battle for hearts and wallets, so to speak, across the state when the two behemoths enter.
Other than acquiring actual physical properties, like you said, FanDuel was looking at the racetrack. I mean, do they have any recourse with regard, using the court system, like filing documents saying, this is unfair treatment, or have they explored that?
To my knowledge, no, but I think at the same time, because the market was trying, it's still a slow-moving market in terms of coming to life. I mean, when the pandemic rolled around, Rivers was operational for 6 days in terms of sports betting, and the Argosy was planning to open on the 16th, which I think is the actual day Governor Pritzker ordered the casinos to shut down. So they haven't really missed much per se. The bigger issue for them was waiting for the licenses to be issued. That might have been the part that winds up, causing the most damage, so to speak, because that clock didn't move until 2 weeks ago. But I have not heard of any legal recourse. And when we originally moved the story that Rivers was going live, FanDuel at least did not seem overly upset that Rivers was going to be first to market. So read into that what you will.
You mentioned it before. Illinois has the requirement that you have to finish your online registration at the physical sports book, but, they said by governor order that they suspended that. Once the pandemic is over and once that's lifted, do you think Illinois will go back to the requirement that once you start the registration for your mobile sports book, you have to finish your registration at the physical sports book?
No, I think if you have the account, you have the account. I think that's a genie you can't put in the back. I don't think you can put that genie back in the bottle without major legal recourse. I think one of the other things, and it was actually a well-written executive order in the sense that, the provision is suspended as long as the gubernatorial proclamations are in place. And also on the Illinois Gaming Board being on board with giving Marcus Fruchter the expanded powers, is that clause extends to him for 60 days beyond the proclamation of disasters, or I forget the exact wording of it, but it's 60 days after the gubernatorial proclamations of disaster. So there is some hand-in-hand work here to expand the mobile betting market here. It's now a question of the Illinois Gaming Board getting those casinos up and running, or at least approving the licenses to have the casinos themselves up and running for mobile sports betting.
It looks like Major League Baseball is going to start in late July. I know these sports books love these benchmarks of when they want to open and go live with their mobile sports betting apps. Do you think because Major League Baseball announced late July, are we going to see a flurry from mobile sports betting apps in Illinois to go live before Major League Baseball starts?
I think that is the proper course of action to take. Whether or not it gets there, of course, is another matter. But again, going back to that extension of powers given Marcus Fruchter, the next meeting is scheduled for July 30th. And while the Illinois Gaming Board doesn't have to wait until issuing those licenses, it wouldn't be surprising if more than one or more of those casinos are licensed to operate mobile sports betting books. Because right now there are 5 total management services provider licenses that have been granted. Like, for example, the Grand Victoria Casino in Elgin has everything in place. They're just waiting for the okay. There are just a few places that have everything in place. It's just a question of getting some of the T's crossed and the I's dotted to have supplier licenses and management services provider licenses. And from there, it should be, in theory, easy to move these forward and be live. Some kicking around ideas is that Hawthorne, which has a deal with PointsBet, could be one of those tracks that's up and running at the July 30th meeting, because it seems more likely that the horse tracks will have their applications approved or denied at that meeting. It just makes sense from a logistical point of view, if that makes sense, in terms of what Marcus Fruchter has to do with the existing casinos, and he can work on the casinos, do what he has to there, and then turn his attention to the racetracks, and then get those approvals moving forward at a pace as well.
Mobile sports betting has been live for only a couple of days in Illinois. How has the response been? Are people generally happy? I mean, it's tough to tell in a pandemic when not a lot of sports are going on, but are the officials generally happy? I hate to see turnout, but the response by customers to the mobile apps and has betting been brisk?
It appears it has been brisk, and like the first weekend, Bet Rivers didn't release like specific handle figures, but they did notice that the RBC tournament had 22% of the handle. Soccer was doing well. The UFC fight card did well. So people are definitely attuned to betting. They have been waiting for this app to go mobile, and they've jumped on it. I think there's a definite appetite here, and I think one of the other things is that in the Chicago area, it's a very short drive to Indiana, which had remote registration from day one, and everyone, it's a very short car drive to just go over the state line, arguably make your bet and then turn around and go home. So that's going to be, keeping those bettors in state is going to be a huge boost for Rivers as the only one currently operating. Now, whether or not, I don't know what kind of percentage that Indiana handle gets from people who drive over the border, because there are 2 casinos literally a half hour away from me here on the north side of Chicago. I don't know, what the exact percentages of people who go over, make that bet and come back, but it was noticeable because I went to both casinos when Indiana reopened on the 15th, and there were lines out the door. I mean, and we're talking 50% capacity, and people were waiting to get in. There's definitely an appetite for, sports betting specifically, but also gambling in general in Illinois. And, as you move forward and the state moves closer to phase 5, it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
How important was it for Bet Rivers to be first? I remember here in New Jersey where there was a mad dash just to get online first, and DraftKings was number one in our market for a long time until being overtaken by FanDuel. How important was it for Bet Rivers to be first in the market?
It matters. It especially matters here, I think, because FanDuel and DraftKings, as of right now, don't have dirt in terms of, a retail presence. So to get online first and establish a beachhead, and I think that's going to prove true for all of the casinos that have a retail presence that want to have a mobile sports book as well. Because when they enter, it's, obvious in every state, when they enter the state, they suck up a lot of the oxygen. There's no arguing that point. So for Bet Rivers to get in first and establish it, and every day they're the only act in town, it's going to help them. Now, I mean, are they going to, command, 50% of the market? No. Not by the time Bet Rivers, by the time FanDuel and DraftKings roll into this market, it would not be surprising to see Bet Rivers have a dominant market share among those 5 or 6 peers, so to speak. But to hold on to, I think even 20% when DraftKings and FanDuel are up and running in this state, maybe 6 months, 9 months down the road, that could be, the target based on just the power that DraftKings and FanDuel carry with the names behind it.
Chris, we're running out of time, but can you give out your website and your social media address so people can follow you and read the articles you're writing?
Sure. Website is sportshandle.com. We also do usbets.com. And my Twitter handle is ALTRUDA73 @Altruda73.
Chris Altruda from SportsHandle.com and Better Collective, thanks for coming on and filling us in on what's going on in the great state of Illinois. Nonstop news is coming out of that state, so thanks a lot for keeping us up to date.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Stick around. We'll be right back with more Turnpike Sports.
We like to think that we live in a nice, safe neighborhood. The truth is that a burglary occurs every 13 seconds, and homes without a security system have a 300% greater chance of getting broken into. How many homes in your neighborhood were robbed yesterday? You need to start protecting your home and family today. Call now to get state-of-the-art protection. To keep your family and property safe, call the number on your screen now. Representatives are standing by to assist you. Sometimes life is wonderful, and sometimes it's not. Cherish the good, but always be prepared for life's challenges. If your employer doesn't supply health care coverage and you don't qualify for Medicare or Medicaid, you need to give us a call right now. Private health care is private health insurance for ages 65 and under with medical, dental, vision, and even prescription coverage. To get the coverage you need, call the number on the screen now.
Turnpike Sports Book Report.
And the Turnpike Sports Book Report is brought to you by BorgataSports.com. Your favorite casino is now your favorite sports book, available anywhere in New Jersey. BorgataSports.com. Sign up at BorgataSports.com using our promo code PIKE, that's P-I-K-E, and you get a risk-free bet up to $300 and 20 bonus dollars at BorgataCasino.com. Must be 21 years or older and in New Jersey to place a bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Well, it looks like some changes in the Super Bowl odds for one team anyway.
All I can say is thank you, New England Patriots, because now we have something else to talk about besides the coronavirus.
Yeah.
They signed Cam Newton as their quarterback, minimal money with a lot of incentives, and it did change the odds in terms of not only the Super Bowl but the AFC East.
Mm-hmm.
I think we'll start over with Superbook. They moved the Patriots from plus 4,000 to plus 3,000 for Super Bowl winning.
Okay, all right. Sounds about right.
Yeah, it's a decent move. PointsBet moved them up to plus 2,000. And at PointsBet, they're only behind 6 other teams: Kansas City, Baltimore, San Francisco, Tampa Bay, New Orleans, and the Cowboys. FanDuel moved them from plus 2,300 to plus 1,700. I think that was one of the bigger moves.
I think that's a pretty big move.
Yeah, I mean, I know plus 1,000 from Superbook is big, but that was actually a pretty big move in terms of where they were situated before. PointsBet also moved them up in the AFC East to win the division now.
See, I don't agree with that. I think the Bills are overall a better team, but who knows?
Well, they don't really have the Patriots as the favorite. They still have the Bills.
Okay,
plus
well,
110.
yeah.
They dropped them down to plus. No, I'm sorry. They dropped them to plus 130.
Okay, but no, I still think the Bills are going to win the AFC East. So I think they're a better team, and I from top to bottom.
I actually think the most logical change was done at Superbook. They have the Bills and Patriots as co-favorites to win the AFC East at plus 130. Personally, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what type of quarterback they're getting just yet. I think if Josh McDaniels runs the offense he had in Denver with Tebow, they have to convert all that, where it's more RPOs, more running quarterback stuff, a lot more running than they had with Brady. I think the offense may work to a certain extent because you don't need huge receivers, big play receivers. All you need is intelligent ones to get open.
Well, that's good because the Patriots do not have big-time receivers.
No,
but I'm curious about Stidham. I mean, from what I'm hearing is he's the presumptive starter going in. That's some places I've heard he's the presumptive, and it's Cam Newton's position to win. And a lot of people think that, after the first couple of games with Stidham as the quarterback, they might switch over to Cam Newton, but who knows? I mean, I don't know how this affects Stidham. Is it one more year to learn the system? Does it hinder his development? What the Patriots do they still need a franchise quarterback? And is Stidham in their sights for that? Who knows?
The one thing I'm questioning for Stidham is if McDaniels does go back to that other offense where it's a running quarterback style offense more so than the passing one. Does Stidham have to learn a brand new offense again, which hinders him there?
Yeah. So, but interesting thing for the Patriots, both their quarterbacks are from Auburn. So you have an Auburn quarterbacks for the Patriots.
Well, we'll see. I just don't know what type of quarterback they're getting just yet. I know he can still run depending on his foot, which kept him out all last year.
Sure. I mean, he's been injury prone the last couple of years, but I mean, if he's healthy and if he has time to heal, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, he's never been the most accurate downfield passer. But again, depends on the offense they're going to run. It looks like they're trying to cater to him to see how he does. We'll see exactly what happens when they actually do get on the field, if they actually do get on the field, considering what's going on around the country. Moving on to a couple news and notes. Rhode Island reported their sports betting numbers for May. They had $1.5 million in handle and $163,000 in revenue. Of the $163,000 in revenue, $162,000 of it was online.
Yeah.
So
Rhode Island's one of those places that have mobile sports betting, but it has that weird rule that in order to finish your registration with the mobile sports betting, you have to go to a physical sports book, the retail sports book, to finish up your registration. I'm wondering. I haven't heard anything out of Rhode Island. I know
they haven't changed that registration.
They haven't changed the rule. They
no.
haven't waived that rule yet. But
hey, they just went through that lawsuit about whether it was constitutional to have it. So they have, they've been doing other things here. So over in Michigan, we had the Firekeepers Casino become the first of the 24 tribally owned casinos to launch sports betting.
Great.
The sportsbook is located in Dacey's Sportsbook. They have 3 live wagering windows, 4 self-service kiosks, big screens, and a 125-seat restaurant people can bet in.
Michigan was one of those states that had that big gaming expansion, which they just included everyone. Sportsbooks, online poker, online casinos. So when Michigan gets up and running, they're going to be a force in the gaming market, I think.
And Colorado's market keeps developing. Betson Group just did a market access agreement with Dostal Alley Casino, planning to launch their sportsbook in early 2021, pending regulatory approval. It's a 10-year deal. And Indiana added a few new sporting events. The Japanese Professional Baseball League, the Nippon Professional Baseball League.
Okay.
They added the basketball tournament, the TBT tournament, and also some FIFA-sanctioned events, as well as some other soccer. Sorry for that. And also they approved some FIBA Select League events as well.
Okay.
Also, I think you talked about this in this week's Bet Flash. Barstool Sports announced that they're planning to launch their app when football season launches
September,
or prior to football season.
Sure.
Well,
they have a deal with Penn National Gaming, so I guess they're going to do some retail stuff across the country with Penn National Gaming as well. So.
They're going to be doing all that stuff once everything is totally reopened, I guess. I don't know exactly when they're going to be launching the retail books just yet, but the app will launch prior to the start of the NFL season. That's September. That means they're also possibly going to have baseball and hockey as well.
Well, we shall see. We don't know about this virus yet, so it's pretty scary.
That's why I said possibly.
Possibly. Well, that'll do it for us. If you're going out, stay safe, wear a mask, and we'll see you next time on the Turnpike.